I want to talk about in my previous podcast where I talked about the Ariel phenomena, Ariel School, and the reason, the message that the aliens were sending. I want to take that a little step further today, and but before I do, I just want to go through some of the messages I've received. I received, of course, as a lot of you know, I this podcast, you can watch it on YouTube, which basically is a chopped up version. I mean, it's not chopped. I mean, basically, I usually what I do in my podcasts, right? I usually talk about a couple of different things, and then when I put it on YouTube, I'll break. In the podcast, it's all one big long, podcast, right? But on YouTube, I'll break that up into two different videos because I know, people don't really sit there want to watch a half hour straight, or 45 minutes or whatever it is. Usually my podcasts are about a half hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And then for YouTube, I'll cut that in half. But I did get a message from somebody who listens to my podcast. Bon Burbank wants to know, what is my YouTube channel? Well, my YouTube channel is Quark Zone, and you could, if it's in the description. I have it. It's in every description of every podcast that I post on, online on Spotify and Apple, whatever you're listening to. You should be able to find that link for my YouTube channel there. It's Quark Zone. And for anybody who's watching my YouTube channel, of course, my podcast is called UFO Extraterrestrial Reality, and you could find that there's at least 10 different places where you could listen to that right now. It's Spotify, Apple, Amazon. So you have a choice. You could either watch the video and watch my face as I'm talking, or you can listen to the podcast version and listen to the disembodied voice. Whatever your choice is, whatever works for you. So there are two different ways to hear, to get my stuff, my podcast. There was somebody else who wrote with regard to that Ariel, my theory, my latest theory on what I think. What it could be, like basically what I stated in that last podcast was basically those aliens in 1994 came and gave us a warning. Basically, the warning is that if we don't straighten up, if at any point that we drop a nuclear bomb, some country decides to drop a nuclear bomb on another country, that they're going to take over. The warning is that if we don't get a grip, then they're taking over. It will trigger the change. That was my theory. And I get into a lot more if you listen to the entire podcast. Of course, it was the latest one. And there was somebody named Shag on the who sent me a message on Anchor through Spotify, and it was, "My God, I do believe you have hit it. Most simple explanation usually is the correct one. I see where you're going with this. Brilliant, frighteningly so." I mean, again, like I stated before, to me, right? I don't know. I'm just saying this is pure speculation, but it does make sense. I mean, I don't know if it's real, but it does make sense. I mean, I've been trying to make sense of this whole thing for my whole life, basically trying to understand what's going on here. And then the more you talk through this thing, maybe that's what's happening here. The more it starts to make sense. The more you talk about it, the more you start realizing, what's going on here. And maybe that's what's going on. Maybe this whole thing is that they're trying to send us a message. Now, there was, on shifting over to some comments on YouTube, I received a comment from one of my followers, Christopher Parrish. He says, "They were here before us and will be here after us. They didn't show up after the atomic bombs dropped. Telling us to slow down is a red herring. They're the ones speeding us up throughout history. They're gaslighting us. They're some silly-ass androids speeding us up and then trying to make us feel guilty for having sped up. They just don't want to have any accountability for turning this acquisition into a petri dish that they constantly parking lot. They're arrogant and prideful, or at least some of, or maybe most of them are." So basically what he's saying, he doesn't think so. I mean, that's the bottom line. He doesn't think that's what it is, that basically they're here for other reasons. And it could possibly be. Again, what I'm putting out there is only speculation. It's only a theory. And then somebody else says, Jay Bake says, "I think they were warning the kids that capitalism was causing climate change and it was going to destroy us." Could be. And there's somebody else, Ben Fox says, "For years I have wondered why world powers would amass so many nukes. Just realized they aren't for pointing at countries on Earth." Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the nukes are for pointing at the extraterrestrials coming here. And then somebody else wrote, FZ wrote, maybe it's why no more atomic bombs were launched since. Government or instances in charge of nuclear attacks are warned. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the reason there has been no nuclear attacks because maybe governments of the world realize that maybe that's what's going to happen, that aliens are going to take over. Maybe that's what's going on. I remember reading something years ago about our planet is basically quarantined. The aliens are here and they're quarantining us. That could be it. I don't know. And maybe some of us are just starting to realize what the big picture is here. And then somebody else wrote, here's tons of bricks wrote, damn, I didn't think about that. Thanks for this one. I wish it was longer. I still got about 30 minutes before I got to work. So he listened to it and he enjoyed and he never thought of that one. I mean, again, I don't think about these things either all the time. When you're talking through these things every day, a few times a week, you start like, it's almost like you're coming to a solution almost, and maybe I'm just digging myself into a deeper rabbit hole. I don't know. But anyway, it was interesting. A lot of the comments. Some people were skeptical of it, and some people think maybe you might be onto something. But what was really interesting to me, and I always tell you guys about my anonymous source who contacts me, a retired electronics engineer who worked for the CIA and NASA and also various defense contractors, now retired. When I was in the process of uploading this and I finished the podcast, or I was doing it and then I was uploading it, I received an email from this anonymous source, and I'll read you some of this email. And this is interesting. So, and now you have to remember, now this is a person now who was talking about that they're basically the aliens are here to colonize. His theory was that they're here to colonize the planet, and the reason for cattle mutilations is to these beings are insects and they have to they survive off blood. That's what the cattle mutilations and possibly human mutilations, and basically at some point they're just going to take over. That was his running theory. But it was interesting when I was doing this other podcast the other day, with my new theory on this whole reasoning behind the Ariel school visit, right? He was sending me this message, and it's almost like, this person's mind changed a little bit too. So wait to hear this. A few things have been running around in my head lately, and they came together in a rather strange way yesterday. First, in a Dolan speech, Richard Dolan he's talking about, the guy I always talk about, Richard M. Dolan, by the way, who has his own YouTube channel and podcast, and plus the author of the two best books, in my view, UFOs and the National Security State, volumes 1 and 2. Add them to your library if you don't have them. I leave the links for those books in every podcast and in every YouTube video. But anyway, continuing here. He says, first, in a Dolan speech, I happened to see a list of things supposedly discovered in the autopsy of the alien bodies from Roswell. Here is a summary I produced in my own words. The creatures are about 4 feet in height and slender. They have long, thin arms with 3 long fingers on each hand. Boy, let me just stop there for a minute. They have thin arms with 3 long fingers on each hand. Okay, just remember, when I was a kid, what I saw, right? 3 long fingers, right? Anyway, continuing. The head is large with large black eyes that contain no pupils. There are auditory passages but no external ears, and the mouths are small with no lips or teeth. The skin is elastic and reptile-like, and the body contains a colorless liquid but no heart or circulatory system. In addition, there are no reproductive organs, indicating that these creatures are clones or hatchlings of some sort. There are no major surprises except the thing about the body being full of a colorless liquid. Next, there was the account he's talking about account that I mentioned in a book by David Jacobs, in which one abductee saw the Greys immersed in tanks of a colorless liquid and was told that they were eating and sleeping. Yeah, there was, in the one book that I read, there was one of the abductees during a hypnotic regression session indicated that they saw these gray beings in these tanks with this colorless liquid, and was told that basically that's how they were receiving nutrition through this through their pores somehow. Then finally, there was the account James Fox gives of the Varginha aliens, which sounds a lot like Greys, but with red eyes, and being injured and asking for help, but we didn't know what to do, and they pretty quickly ended up dead. We've talked quite a bit about the massive blood collection program and the idea they feed on blood. The implication was that they drink it, but what if instead they filter out the plasma, which is indeed a clear, colorless liquid, and then absorb it through the skin? If that's the case, perhaps they actually have to spend some time each day in one of those nutrient tanks, and if they can't get back to the nutrient tank in time, they become sick and die. Maybe those things in Varginha were really Greys, and their eyes turn red in the final stages of dying due to lack of nutrition. Maybe getting to a nutrient tank was the kind of help they needed, but of course, nobody realized it. It occurs to me that although we don't like these creatures and we wish they weren't here, it would still be in our interest to try to help them if they crashed. We always seem to put them in some sort of prison cell and they quickly end up dead. I wonder if we built some nutrition tanks and kept a stock of plasma on hand, we might be able to keep them alive. It might make some points with their hierarchy if we demonstrated that we had figured out how they sustain themselves and we actually tried to help some of them for a change when they crashed. It might even lead to some sort of meaningful communication. I'm just going to stop there for a minute. This might already be going on. I mean, in the United States government, it's possible that they already figured this out. And the special I think it's called an OPNAC team from Majestic 12, when they go to these crash sites, and if there's any aliens, maybe they do know what to do. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But anyway, continuing. We really need to get our hands on one of the autopsy reports. If some whistleblower has a copy somewhere, it would really help. I doubt we can reverse engineer one of the spaceships, but understanding their biology may be within our abilities. When you think about it, what we do to cattle in a slaughterhouse seems pretty horrible, so perhaps it's a mistake to judge the aliens too harshly for what they do. We really can't fight them, so maybe communication and perhaps making some agreements is the only real option. We could certainly feed them some cows, and maybe they could help us with some clean energy technology to stop climate change. That would be in both our interests. Boy, there's a lot to think about here, right? Now again, and usually before, my anonymous source here was talking in a different tone. Now it's changed. It's interesting, and that's what maybe I'm seeing too. Maybe what's going on here is maybe that's what needs to be done. Maybe a deal could be made somehow. Yeah, here, take all the cows you want. But see, again, how do you deal with someone that they could take what they want? They don't need to make any deals. That's the tough thing. They could do whatever they want. They have the power over us. And there's nothing we can do to stop them from doing whatever they want to do. I mean, they could come in this house right now while I'm sitting here doing this podcast and put me, basically hit a button and put me on pause, and then take me on their spaceship, do a whole bunch of stuff to me that I don't want them to do, and then carry me back in here, place me back down, and then unhit the pause button, and I won't even know what the hell just happened. I'll be wondering why like an hour and a half went by, but that's about it. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot to think about here. With the Varginha case, I mean, of course, in the 1996 Varginha crash, which was detailed excruciatingly, actually, in the new James Fox documentary, Moment of Contact, which I talked about on here. In 1996, there were alien beings that people in the town saw, and they didn't look like your traditional gray, but maybe like my anonymous source is saying here, maybe what was going on is that they were dying and they needed nutrition, and that's what was wrong with them. Who knows? I mean, that's possible. It is possible. We just don't know. Now, they did have, from the reports, though, they did look a little bit different than your normal gray. They had like some kind of different surface, like little, almost like something bumps on their heads, like that were different from your traditional gray. But again, maybe that could be something that comes on, that shows up when when they're dying. I mean, who knows? It's possible. Anything's possible because we just don't have all the answers. We just don't know. Our governments don't share these answers with us. They don't share any information with us. And like I was talking about just earlier, it looks like they really want to start clamping down on this again. Really, it looks like maybe what I was talking about earlier with the that guy in Las Vegas, getting in trouble. Maybe that's a message that you're trying to send to the whistleblowers, potential whistleblowers. Hey, you want to whistleblow? Guess what we might do? This is something that might happen to you. You think about whistleblowing. Look what happened to this guy. Could be just trying to set an example. But yeah, I mean, again, the way we do treat cattle. I mean, it's horrible. If you were to stand around a slaughterhouse for, you get used to it. But if you were to look at it and see the way we treat these cows, it's disgusting. I just got done eating 2 double cheeseburgers today earlier. One, spaced apart. I bought 2 of them and I ate one, and I ate another one a couple hours later from Burger King. Just mindlessly ate these 2 burgers, not really thinking about where it came from. But yeah, sometimes I do. But now I'm thinking about it, and it's we put these cows and all these animals and chickens, turkeys, whatever we eat, we eat these things, and then we're going to be all worried about the blood, some aliens draining some blood from cattle. Or what are we talking about? Look what we do. So yeah, maybe that's not so bad of a thing, I guess. I mean, aliens got to eat too, right? I mean, so maybe that's what they're doing, and that's what it's for. But again, I'm just getting back to the bottom line of all of this, right? Is this whole message, which I think is very possible, is that what I was talking about the other day, is this message that may have been given to us by these aliens in 1994, and maybe we're just going to start realizing now exactly what that message is. And they're here. I mean, these beings are here. They've been here for a long time. They've been getting ready for the change. And they're not going to do the change until we cross the line. We haven't crossed the line yet. We're close. We haven't crossed it yet, right? But we're getting close. And we cross that line, they could take over. They could say that's what all of this is about. That explains everything. The reason, for one thing, they got to eat. That explains the cattle and animal mutilations. They drink blood. They're like insects. They need that. That's part of their daily nutrition intake, right? So that explains that part. Alien abductions, creating a basically an army of beings that look like humans but are actually aliens and have the same power as these aliens, the same mental powers, the telepathic powers as these aliens, and intelligence levels as these aliens, and have them all scattered around among us, right? Ready to be triggered at any moment, to be put into action at any moment, right? Whenever they're ready to go, right? Whenever they hit that red button, right? Just whenever we, if one of these countries in this world decides to drop a nuclear bomb on somebody, that's going to trigger this whole thing into action. It makes sense. That's what it seems like when you think about the message that was conveyed to those kids in Ariel in 1994, and you put it all together. That message could be, we're here to take over. And if you think about what's been going on, the way people have been abducted over the years, hey, and some of these human mutilations, maybe these aliens, maybe there's criminals among them too. Right? Maybe they're able to in a higher in an advanced technological setting where beings are more advanced than human beings. They're still criminals, right? You couldn't stop that completely, right? Maybe it could be. You would think, right? Human mutilation would be tantamount as to cattle mutilation, but it really isn't, right? There's a lot more, as far as we know, right? It seems like it's more of a rare thing, but it happens sometimes. Maybe some of these aliens, do things that are wrong too, and they're punished by their kind for what they do. Maybe someone would look at us as for sport and decide, you know what, I want to drink that guy's blood, so I'm going to kill him and drink his blood, and then later on they get caught and punished somehow. I mean, so, because look at us. I don't think the human race is ever going to reach a point where you eliminate criminals and crime and evil, right? There's always going to be evil and crime, right? We're never going to get there. I just don't see it. I don't think it's possible. I mean, because we're just as bad now as we were a long time ago. I mean, you look in ancient times, you think, look at all the bad things that people did to each other back then. You look at today, it's just, what's changed? It's just, there's just technology involved. You know, so that's what I think, that we need to figure out a way to make sure that the criminal elements among us, the evil among us, do not have the power to cause mass destruction in one fell swoop, like with the dropping a nuclear bomb. And that could be the message that these aliens are telling us. Yes, there's some bad people among you. Yes, there's going to be some people that kill other people because they're just evil, right? But guess what? You got to get control over you can't have people in charge who are evil, right? Who have the propensity possibly to start a nuclear war. Because if you do that, that means you're out of control, and that means we're going to have to do something and take over, because we can't let you advance any further, because that means at some point you're going to be traveling through the stars, and you're going to be going to other worlds and doing the same thing to other races out there. You're going to try. We're going to start wars with that's what they might be thinking, and that's why they have to. That's why they would do what they're saying, that what they might do, or what they're indicating. They're indicating that, hey, we're going to take over if you don't get a grip, and that's what's going on here. It's very possible. Again, it's just all speculation. It's just a theory. It doesn't make me right, and everyone's going to have their opinion on this. But I'm just throwing that out there right now. In fact, I do plan on putting something together on this. I think it needs to be written out. I think I need to sit down and write this out. Like what I think is the answer, what explains everything, why the government's covering this up, why they're not going to ever tell us the complete truth, and what the aliens' purpose is, and why they're here, why there's a presence here on this earth, and what they're going to do if we ever go cross a line. I'm going to have to put something more detailed together that explains this. Anyway, until next time.